So since we have a new tornado warning, just kind of typical, we go through these exercises and we want to look at every single layer and see if we are seeing any signs of strong rotation, and then if so, debris being lofted or damage being done on the surface. So first things first, starting with velocity, the greens and the reds, pretty obvious. We have a couplet, and it is, I'd say it's pretty strong when you have those brighter colors right next to one another. I'm going to go to one product called NROT, which shows normalized rotation, and that can really allow me to see if we have damage being done, where we have the strongest rotation. And right now, I would say no. We are not seeing anything, which is good, very good news, but don't let the guard be put down because there's still very, very big hail and strong winds moving in. So now that we have this storm, which is up there in Jennings County, and also into now Jefferson County, we do want to come back to Louisville in Indiana because Jefferson County.
Looking at Jefferson County, Kentucky. You know, somebody should have thought about that.
They're too close.
Naming places. Okay, so this is a new severe thunderstorm warning, but one of the higher level ones. And it does include parts of Metro Louisville. So this is now issued for Clark, Floyd, Harrison, and Jefferson counties. And again, that's Jefferson County, Kentucky. All the others listed are in Indiana. The damage threat here is considerable because of the hail size. That's why this is kind of that plussed up warning. Hail the size of a golf ball approaching Louisville right now. Not here yet. We'll do a track in just a moment. I also want to mention that this storm has that that tornado possible tag on it. So we're still watching for this storm to spin, watching some rotation possible at any moment. Not necessarily that it's here right now, but that at any moment this storm could start to spin, and again that it's producing hail. So here's that hail core moving toward Georgetown now. It's not in Louisville yet. We're trying to give you a really early heads up. And you can see that that warning only extends into West Louisville and then down toward the western part of the county through PRP. And let me flip you back over to reflectivity and zoom in just a smidge. So let's go ahead and put a track on this storm. This one, again, the warning is until 6:15. This storm is moving to the southeast at 35 miles an hour. So I am going to track it first from the leading edge, and then we'll track it from the more intense part of the storm. How's that sound? We'll do both for you. Moving to the southeast about 35 miles an hour would bring this storm into Louisville in about 15 minutes. So Floyd's Knobs, you're really starting to get the heavy rain now. The thunder and lightning are picking up, so is the wind. Again, this is just the leading edge of the storm, not the most intense part. That would be in New Albany in about 5 minutes and Louisville in about 15 minutes. J-Town about 35 minutes away from you as it continues to move toward the southeast. Now let's do a second track on the most intense part of the storm. So this is going to arrive later. Again, also moving to the southeast, about 35 miles an hour. So the most intense part of the storm, where we have that hail core, hail up to the size of a golf ball, where we're watching the potential for rotation. That is still 15 minutes away from New Albany. It's only 5 minutes away from Lanesville, though you're kind of on the southern edge of that. Clarksville, about 20 minutes away from you, and Louisville, the center of the city, that's the center of downtown, is where that Louisville locator is tracking to. It's about 25 minutes away from the most intense part of that storm. I just want to reemphasize that as we watch this roll into Metro Louisville, that's elite level hail. We do not see golf ball sized hail here every day. We talk a lot about peas and dimes and much smaller hail. Please be aware that this is moving in. Now is the time to move your car indoors. Now is the time to get everybody indoors, not the time to just go into the shelter by the pool. You've got to be in a sturdy structure. This is going to be a significant storm. It is moving through the most populated, not currently, let me rephrase that. It is headed toward the most populated part of our area. We want to keep a very close eye on this. And the fact that it's not weakening, I don't love that.
No,
I agree with you. It should be falling apart. That would be great. But it's maintaining all of this intensity as it moves closer to Louisville. So that's something that we want to make sure everybody's aware of. We also have the ongoing tornado warning, remember, that's diving now into Jefferson County, Indiana. So this storm is starting to spread out a little bit, getting a little bit more diffuse here. Still the potential to rotate. We're going to keep that active tornado warning on it for another, let's see, I think 15 or 20 minutes on that warning. Let me pull up that information here.
And Hannah, while you do that, I'll probably go over to the wall and just kind of be able to give everyone an idea of what's going on, especially with that storm. Obviously, the tornado warning storm in Lovett, and also Smyrna and Deputy, but also the one that's moving to Louisville. So we're trying to keep track of everyone because I know everyone thinks they're not paying enough attention to me, and trust me, we are trying to get everyone the information. There's so many storms out there that it's really difficult to keep up. But obviously, Louisville, now we're under the gun. I'm not seeing so much of a rotation concern, Hannah.
Not either.
Louisville, but I feel like these winds are now starting to become a little more unidirectional. There's still a tail. Don't get me wrong. There's still a tail, but we are starting to see a surge of the winds coming out from that particular storm. So in Louisville, you're probably saying, what can I expect? You're going to get the rain, no doubt about that. The lightning is going to be frequent, vivid, and intense. But there's going to be a corridor where we get perhaps some quarter to golf ball sized hail moving into the city, and there's still the possibility of a tornado. The possibility does exist. So if you live in Louisville, especially the western right now and southwestern portion, be ready. The other part we will get to as the storm moves in. But what Hannah has done is turned on the velocity. And in this kind of situation, we would look for greens and reds like this, like banked up right against one another, and what we refer to as a couplet. So I'm seeing a lot of greens and reds, but this seems like wind that's all moving in the same direction. So it does appear as though wind and hail are going to be the main two concerns moving into Louisville. Why I don't want to say tornado is off the table is because of this feature. On reflectivity, you see that little hook? This is exactly where a tornado could form if one did indeed do so. But the rest of the area right now, if you're looking at areas like St. Matthews through Clifton up into Prospect, you are getting some good old-fashioned rainfall. And the heavy stuff is starting to move in. Heavy rainfall moving into New Albany. It is just starting to reach downtown Louisville. Hail, wind, main two threats. But keeping an eye on the rotation, we still had that tornado possible tag with this severe thunderstorm. That means it's possible. So this is something that we don't want to take off the table. Be ready to go to your safe place if we say so.
Sorry, Rick.
That's all right.
You were wrapping that up. Can we take the Corridon camera? It's in the WeatherPix computer, and just see what we're looking at there, because Rick pointed out a really interesting feature. And Rick, I would love to hear your thoughts about what you see in this view, because you were pointing out kind of that tail extending just outside Corridon, south of this storm. And again, this is the storm approaching Louisville. We're going to keep a really close eye on it. Describe to us what you see here as you watch the radar data, as you see this image. Like what sticks out to you here?
Well, there's definitely rotation inside this storm. There's no doubt about that. We don't want to see those low-hanging clouds, because those are the ones that are concerning. Am I seeing? I mean, could that be a wall cloud perhaps in the very center? I would probably not, but it's certainly a possibility. Maybe more toward the right-hand side of your TV screen. So not seeing a funnel cloud or a tornado on this one, that is a good sign.
That's a great sign. It's just fascinating to see how disturbed those clouds are. They're just so unsettled.
Oh, it's turbulent up there. I mean, that mesocyclone,
well said.
That supercell, it is rotating. And that's what's allowing to keep those hailstones up there, that they get so big. But, I mean, that's just a scary sight. To see that showing up in Corridon, clouds that look like that, you can see the trees just kind of getting slapped around by some of that wind. So some really nasty-looking clouds showing up in Corridon associated with that supercellular storm. What I want to do is just make sure that we're not seeing any uptick in terms of rotation within that storm either. And again, not seeing anything terribly concerning at this given moment. Doesn't mean it can happen, but just still, for now, some strong winds and hail in Louisville. Those are going to be your main two threats. We also have the tornado warning in Jefferson and Scott County in southern Indiana. This until 6:15 p.m. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's also 2-inch hail with that one.
Right.
So it's not just a tornado threat. It's also the threat for large, damaging hail that could be threatening to life and property.
Right. This storm is moving toward the southeast, so it's headed toward Madison. It's headed toward the river, so let's go ahead and put a track on this. This one has been tough. There's not a great couplet, a really tight area of rotation to show you, but this storm is capable of producing a tornado at any moment, which is why it got a new warning on it. The Weather Service saying, we can't let this threat go away. We've got to keep letting you know that this exists, that this is here. So from the most intense part of the storm, where rotation is most likely, where the rain is the most intense, where we're seeing the larger hail, that's about 5 minutes away from the DuPont area, about 15 minutes away from Smyrna, Bellevue closer to 20 minutes, and I mentioned Madison earlier along the river, closer to 25 to 30 minutes away from you. So we want to keep a close eye on this one. This is an active tornado warning, okay, folks? Just because we're saying, oh, it's hard to see a tight couplet here, that does not mean you should let your guard down at all. If you are inside of this tornado warning or in any of these communities nearby, now is the time to be in your safe place. I think we're seeing this rotation spread out just a little bit, this becoming a little bit more driven by wind, but we've got to keep a close eye on this. And in fact, I'm going to flip over to Rick's computer because he's looking at the velocity. There's still a little bit of a couplet there just south of Paris Crossing where we've got a bright green right next to a bright red. And I'll come back over to the reflectivity here. That's that tail section that's starting to stick out around the Deputy area. So that's what we're watching closely there. And you can see an updated scan coming in. That's going to pass through Deputy and just south of Paris as it continues to move toward the southeast on the southern edge of that warning box. So as this moves into the next county, as it approaches the river, this is a storm we want to keep a really close eye on. It is the only active tornado warning we have in our area right now. However, it's not the only tornado threat. Several of these orange boxes, these severe thunderstorm warnings, contain a tag that says tornado possible. We all learned a lot about this in March when we had destructive wind move through Louisville with a tornado possible tag, and then we saw tornadoes. So remember, you've got to keep your guard up when those tags exist on a warning. And there's also, by the way, elite level hail inside of these storms. We're talking about hail the size of a golf ball. We've seen even a couple of reports of some larger hail than that. So each of these storms is dangerous for a slightly different reason, but that's why we're still with you. It's why we've been on television with you, I think, for a couple of hours now. To be honest, I've lost count.
I've lost track of time,
but that's why we're with you. We don't like to stand here and talk to you. Believe it or not, we don't like to hear the sound of our own voices. This is not about us. We're concerned about your safety. That's why we're here with you today. It's why we're paying such close attention to the storm as it comes up to Louisville. Because, again, this is elite level hail. These are golf balls falling out of the sky, approaching our most populated area. That's alarming. That's why we're here with you today. So you're taking a live look at the radar here. I'm actually going to flip over to Storm View 3D because we're getting a good look at the hail that's coming into Louisville, and this is one of my main concerns. By the way, the storm could rotate, and it has wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour, so all threatening, but this hail core is concerning. It's passing through Georgetown right now. It's not the only hail core that we're watching, but again, the point of this being that Louisville, just the most heavily populated part of our community, we've got to pay attention when golf balls are falling out of the sky. Rick?
Did you hear that, Hannah?
No, what is it?
The rumbles of thunder in downtown Louisville. I mean, the storm is coming, folks. You can hear it. I also want to, just before we get into that storm analysis of Louisville itself, I want to show you just proof of what has happened. We are getting some pictures of the hail damage, and this one windshield just completely smashed in French Lick by some of the large golf ball plus sized hail. So there's a shot from French Lick. We also have another one which came in from Bloomington. Look at that, golf ball sized hail. I mean, there's someone's hand. So imagine pieces of ice that large falling from the sky, hitting your car, hitting your roof. There is reports now of damage coming in all over the French Lick area from that larger hail. So that was a real deal. There is the proof in the pudding right there that the large hail was occurring, and now we are watching Louisville very closely for the threat of some hail. Do I think it's going to be that large? No, but it's still going to be threatening enough. At least quarter to golf ball size hail will be possible. French Lick also saw some baseballs earlier today. Now we're moving into an environment that just doesn't really have the same storm energy that we had in our far northwestern counties where we saw the worst of the damage. But I don't want you to let your guard down. Louisville is now under a severe thunderstorm warning. There's also some strong winds on the backside of that warning, so just because this goes through doesn't mean you're completely done just yet. But Louisville is bracing for some gusty winds and some hail. This is, again, not your ordinary severe thunderstorm warning. I know you typically get these and your phone goes off and you're like, just another warning.
Right.
We get these all the time, you know, Hannah?
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Exactly. This is golf ball size hail potentially and 60 mile per hour winds. Again, not seeing anything in terms of rotation for now, Hannah, which is a good thing, but it's subtle, it's still there, it could happen.
So we're looking here at, so you're taking a live look at Louisville right now. The lightning is flashing. Again, if you are trying to see a tornado today, you will be disappointed. These are wrapped in rain. You won't see anything. I'll flip back over to reflectivity. This is the intense rain you're watching on your camera here, approaching downtown Louisville. But we were just talking about hail. It's the reason we're so concerned about this particular storm as it moves into Louisville. I think we're seeing some really good signs here. A report just came in from Floyd's Knobs, the other side of the river, of pea-sized hail. That's significantly smaller than a golf ball, and thank goodness. So we look at the radar data here. Radar can't actually see the size of the hailstone. It's estimating based on the size of things around it. But you can see as I walk this backward, the brighter colors, or I should say maybe the darker blue, the purples that show up here, that's larger hailstones inside of the storm, south of the Central Barron area near Crandall. As this storm is moving toward the river and approaching Louisville, we are losing those more intense colors. You can see it's more grays and whites on the map now as opposed to the blues and the purples. There is still hail inside of that storm, but the fact that a report just came in from the Knobs that says it's the size of peas now instead of golf balls, that's an excellent sign. So here's a view from the Knobs where we just got that report in. You can still see the rain flying and maybe some small hail there that's falling, but it's not the golf ball size hailstones that we showed you from French Lick on that live camera when we watched the storm pass through earlier. This looks like a completely different view, and thank goodness as that storm starts to roll into Louisville now. So remember, only the western part of the city, West Louisville, Shively, PRP, stretching down to the southern part of the county, that's what's included in the thunderstorm warning. At this point, the Weather Service has not told us what they're going to do with that, if they're going to extend it or not. But that warning goes until 6:15, so they've got 10 minutes to make a decision. The storm obviously is starting to run outside of the warning box, so I expect that they'll let us know here shortly what they're going to do. The potential still exists, though, for that larger hail to grow and for strong wind gusts, up to 60 miles an hour inside of this storm. That's another threat we need to be considering. Rick, what are you seeing?
So a couple things, just echoing what you said. The Weather Service probably will extend that warning to include more of, if not just about all of Jefferson County, which is for Louisville. But what I want to do is go back over to our other view, which is Storm View. And this is our HD version. And this shows you just the winds. And I don't want to take away from the severe thunderstorm, which is moving into Louisville. But Hannah, if you look to the northwest, right on the back side of the actual warning, you can actually see another couplet starting to form.
Yeah, this is what you're talking about outside Marengo,
That's
right?
the one right there, right near Marengo.
Approaching Corden. Hey, look at that, a new warning. It's like you're psychic.
Okay, yeah, not quite. Just I wish I was. It would make my job a lot easier. But definitely showing some signs of concern now, growing yet again in Corden. We actually have a camera, too, and we'll probably look at that in a second. But we are starting to see now another area of rotation, which is evolving just to the north and west of Corden. And the same thing happened in French Lick. You saw that golf ball to baseball-sized hail roll through, and then another storm started rotating again. So just because you get hit by a storm, it's not a one-and-done kind of scenario in a day like this because there's just a lot of energy out there. And here is that live-looking Corden panning around. You see the trees and some of those stronger winds, the ominous-looking skies, the low-hanging clouds, all things that you don't want to see at 6:06 on a Sunday afternoon. I'm sure you want to kick your feet up, fire the grill, enjoy some time with your family. But unfortunately, this is now the scene showing up in Corden. And it's, trying to see the difference between the tree line and the cloud base. And that's what kind of is tough in this kind of scenario. It can obscure some of the views if we had some sort of wall cloud or funnel cloud or tornado trying to form. But there is some stronger rotation, which is now gathering, and we now have a new severe thunderstorm warning for that particular location. And Hannah, I don't know if you could verify it. Does that one also have a tornado tag on it?
It does, yeah. It includes that tornado possible tag, 1-inch hail, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. In fact, we just got 2 new warnings. A second one for parts of Bullitt County. So you guys are new. You've not been included in a warning yet. This is going to extend through Louisville, takes it over just into Bullitt County to the edge of Jefferson County. So that's a brand new severe thunderstorm warning for you. Let's get in close so you can get the right information on it. There you go. There's the right information.
Still saying considerable, too.
Yeah, so 1-inch hail, 60 mile per hour wind as that storm chases through the county. You know what's interesting actually about that, Rick, is that the warning that comes up into western Jefferson County, that had the elite stuff on it. That had large hail. It had the tornado possible tag. This new warning that takes it into the eastern part of the county and just into the northern part of Bullitt County, right around the Shepherdsville area, this warning is different. It is a basic severe thunderstorm warning, and thank goodness for that. A basic thunderstorm warning for wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour and hail 1 inch in diameter, which is still considerable. That's the size of a quarter. We want to make sure you're aware of that. We're not saying there's an all clear here or that this is going to be a chill storm. It's not. But I think we're seeing a little bit of a weakening signal there as it moves into the metro.
Hannah, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Great point. This is weakening. While it's still a severe thunderstorm warning, you should take action. It's not to that high level Hannah was referring to where we saw golf ball size hail. You still have some quarters. You're going to hear them. The rain is coming down like in sheets. What I want to do is I want to switch over to our camera building, which we have on top of the 800 in downtown Louisville. And that will give us a live look at what is happening in downtown Louisville. Obviously, you see it on radar, and now you can see it through our camera lens. So there is the rainfall coming down in sheets in Louisville. I'm trying to look very closely to see if I can, is there any hail out there? Can we see anything? It's really tough to see from that sort of distance. But I would think for now, the hail core is still just northwest of you. But as Hannah alluded to, you're not going to see large golf ball size hail hitting Louisville. That is great information, but still the possibility for some hail coming in. And again, Louisville right now, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning. And this warning goes all the way until 6:30 p.m. 20 more minutes in Louisville. Stay in your safe place. Get away from windows. This is not a basement style kind of warning. I don't think you have to do that, but you should be in an interior room and just in case you get some of these hailstones outside or some gusty winds knocking down some tree limbs. Can't rule out some power outages. There's a live look outside of our studio in downtown Louisville. And I hope you didn't park your car in one of those low-lying locations because the rain is coming down in sheets. I mean, it can't be ruled out, especially in these urban areas, to get some flooding in the low-lying areas that typically flood. So watch out for some flooding. Severe thunderstorm means you probably shouldn't even be out venturing in the county anyways. So just kind of give it some time. Let this storm pass by. It's going to deliver quite a bit of rainfall. Could we use some rain? Yes, we are still in drought. But unfortunately, a lot of this we refer to as runoff. It comes down so fast and so furious. It's hard for a lot of that to really penetrate the subsoil and get into the surface. So there's a look at the storm in Louisville. Again, I'm also still more concerned with that storm coming in on the backside of it. It's not showing as much rotation as it did at one point in time. As we go back over to reflectivity, I'm going to go back a couple of frames.
Oh, ew. I don't like that.
What are you seeing over here?
No, you're
oh, you're seeing that last
wind
one, yeah.
Pulsing up. Yeah.
So that's when we were really concerned about approaching Corden, and just kind of like what happened in French Lick, the wind intensity is starting to come down. Yet another good sign. This is also moving in now into it's rain-cooled air, and that tends to take away the instability, which basically chokes off these storms from the prime energy that they had just a couple of hours ago. Moving forward here, the storm energy is going to come down. We still have severe thunderstorms in Louisville. We have an ongoing tornado warning, and we're not going to leave you until both of those threats are gone, Hannah.
Right, and I think we're seeing encouraging trends here. So we're not going to leave you in just a couple of minutes, but for the folks behind the scenes, I think we're starting to see signals we're going to wrap this up sooner rather than later. Here's why. You're looking at the active tornado warning in our area for parts of Jefferson and Scott counties here. That goes until 6:15. It's currently 6:12. The Weather Service has now issued a new thunderstorm warning. I'll get in close so you can see the information on that for Jefferson and Trimble counties. Again, that's Jefferson County in Indiana. We're looking at Indiana now. They have extended. Well, I won't say extended. They're choosing to chase this storm, this tornado-warned storm, with a thunderstorm warning that does include those elite tags. Remember, we want to keep that in mind for hail, 1 3/4 inch in diameter, which is the size of a golf ball. Okay, so they're still warning of golf ball-sized hail, which would do considerable damage, and wind gusts to 60 miles an hour. But I think that the Weather Service is seeing what we're seeing there, saying that the tornado threat on this storm has really come down in the last few scans as it approaches Smyrna. In fact, right on top of you now, as it's getting closer to Madison along the river. Carrollton beyond that. This storm is moving to the southeast. We'll go ahead and put a track on it here quickly, and then we want to take another look to the south. Oh, there's a new tornado warning.
And it does include Louisville.
Okay. It does include Louisville.
Yes.
Okay. Let's back out of this. Let's get into this. Here's that new tornado warning. It's in a lot of jumbled data. New tornado warning includes parts of Floyd, Harrison, and Jefferson County, Kentucky until 6:45 this evening. So just kidding. We're going to stay with you. We're going to be with you until this warning expires. This goes into Shively. This is up next to PRP. This is far western part of the county. This includes West Louisville. Active tornado warning now. Radar indicates a tornado is capable. The storm is capable of producing a tornado. It's that same area of rotation that Rick was just watching outside Corridon. It was south of Marengo. We were keeping an eye on it. So, Rick, I'm going to come back over to you on Storm View 3D. Show us what you've seen change in the last couple of scans that earned us this new tornado warning. Okay, so obviously that's your reflectivity. I'm going to go over, just so you're oriented, to the storm relative velocity, and this shows the wind. So let me make sure I don't have the wrong feature turned on. So let's scroll back a couple of frames. Remember, we were concerned here, and then couple scans we weren't as concerned. This is when we let our guard down a little bit, said, okay, well, it looks like the storm on the backside is weakening. And as we move forward a few more frames, what you can tell is that the rotation is starting to pick up yet again, at least some really powerful winds. And to me, it looks like some really strong winds that are being transported down. And I'm not quite sure this is going to be able to hold together because it looks like that strongest core of winds has just recently dropped out in the latest scan. So I'm hoping that's a sign that we can continue to watch, that this thing was more of kind of a flash or brief triggered warning rather than a long duration one. But it's still something that is worthy of watching, because there's that latest scan of velocity. Going back a couple frames, you can see how much stronger the winds were just south of DePaul. You have blues in there indicating winds of 65 to 70 miles per hour. And you notice if you watch that core, it's come down somewhat. And that is a promising sign. But if you look at reflectivity, we still have a hook on there. And that does mean that it's a supercell, it's rotating, and there's a possibility for a tornado. So we want to acknowledge that because this includes part of Jefferson County, Kentucky, there are tornado sirens sounding now around Louisville. Not everyone in Louisville is included in the tornado warning. We can hear them outside of our building. You're hearing some of that now. So you're seeing now a live view from Louisville outside the back door of our studio. I want to show you the radar scan real quick so you can see what we're looking at. Take you back over to Storm View HD. There's a track on the rotation, where the storm is rotating from. It's not near Louisville yet. Still about 20 or 25 minutes away from the center of the city, but Lanesville only 15 minutes away from you. So as we come in close to Louisville, what are we seeing in the city right now? Heavy rain, intense rain. You look outside, you can see that rain falling from our live view outside WDRB studios. Heavy rain, thunder and lightning. The wind is blowing, but it's not severe level here, I would say. You can see how the trees are moving. It's not elite level, and we're not seeing hail falling either at this point. This tornado warning was issued well in advance of the rotation arriving in the city. So we're giving you 20 or 30 minutes heads up. Rick, that thing at Shively. Let's go look over to that.
Yeah, so I know you're saying the main area of rotation is off to the west, but another one. This one just popped up, and again, this is kind of concerning that we are seeing a couplet now beginning to form just to the north and the west of Shively. This does not say there's definitely a tornado on the ground. What I want to do is make sure that that is not the case. So going over to correlation coefficient, okay, good. Not seeing anything that screams we have damage ongoing, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be in your safe place. You already should be in Shively, but if you're around Campground Road, if you are in Bell's Lane, if you are on Cane Run Road, Miller Lane, safe place, do it right now. This storm is strong enough that it's going to produce easily some 60-mile-per-hour winds and some quarter-size hail at the bare minimum. But this may also be a sign that we are starting to see some rotation go on the front edge of the tornado warning. And if this happens to maintain strength or get even stronger, then we're going to have to maybe even have a new warning because this is going to move out of that warm box very quickly. So yeah, this is something we're going to watch here, Hannah. This is okay.
Oh, I don't like that.
No, me neither. Another scan came in.
Let's
getting
take
stronger.
that traffic camera, see what we can see outside. So you're going to see here one of our traffic cameras at the Watterson at Dixie Highway. It's not a great image. It's a traffic camera, but you're seeing that the sky is getting darker. You can see how low the clouds are, and then we get that new scan on the radar that shows that couplet kind of coming together. Here's the problem. We're trying to give you a heads up, again, just north of Shively, the St. Denis community. That's where we're seeing this rotation. Let's go ahead and come back to the radar that Rick's looking at. This is still inside the tornado warning box. So the Weather Service is not going to give you an update that says, yes, we think this is a tornado, or yes, we think this is rotating. This is still covered by the active warning. We're trying to say, hey guys, this is developing right now. If you've got folks in the Shively community or any of these spots that you see listed here, now is the time to make that phone call, to send that text. This is really coming up quickly. Not that this is currently a tornado, but that this part of the storm, it just got its act together. That's what we're trying to make sure you're aware of. And again, folks, as this approaches the most populated part of our area, that's what's alarming about this. We're not trying to scare you. We're trying to help you make good choices to keep you and your loved ones safe. When we see something that jumps out like this on the radar, that's the intent here. And so, Rick, you watched that, man. You were on that, like white on rice, dude. That was awesome.
Well, we're just trying to keep you safe. I mean, honestly, we say that. We're not just saying it to say it. Like, this is something that we are all extremely passionate about. We all feel a responsibility to you to keep you guys safe in situations like this, because I know it can be scary. I mean, this is, I don't know about you, Hannah, but this is why I got into this. Growing up, I remember being in a basement terrified because we had tornado warnings and I had no idea what was going on, and said to myself, well, let's change that. Can I help? Can I be there? And so I'm just glad that Hannah and I are here for you to get you through this before, during, and after the storm. We're going to be here every step of the way, and we're going to get through this. But right now, concerning area of rotation, which has developed on the front leading edge of this tornado warning in downtown Louisville, north of Shively. So what that means is that a new tornado warning may have to be issued. What I'm going to do is turn on the correlation coefficient on a different computer just to see if there's damage, and there's not. But what you're looking at right now is that warning moving into downtown Louisville. It is tornado warned, and the rest of the county is just dealing with torrential rainfall, extreme lightning, and some gustier winds. Severe thunderstorm warning, that actual tornado warned storm is till 6:45, another 25 minutes, but that's also for the back edge. So this is kind of a complex situation where we can't say that the warning will be done because there's another area of rotation, a new one, which has developed on the front side of this. I'm just waiting for a new scan to come in. In the meantime, I'm going to just kind of go back and just make sure the other area of rotation has not strengthened. It has not. So honestly, my eyeballs are a little more focused on what's moving just to the north of Shively.
Yeah.
And the new scan is downloading as we speak. So
okay, while that's downloading, can we take the Weather Pix camera? We're starting to get some pictures and reports in from communities around Louisville and Jefferson County, and these are going to be really helpful ground truth when this comes in. But folks, you've got to let the storm pass before you go outside and take pictures, please. These storms are dangerous. It's why we're on your television today. We're tired. We would like to not be talking to you, but we believe these storms are a threat to you. That's why we're still with you. So this photo is from Southwest Jefferson County off of Terry Road. It was easier for me to share it from my retweet, but let me make sure I'm giving credit to the folks who sent it to me. Okay, they don't have a name on Twitter, so never mind. But you can see how ominous these clouds look. This looks like a really low wall cloud, or even maybe starting to extend out a little bit, that cold pool coming out ahead of that photo. So this is what we're keeping an eye on, that dangerous-looking storm moving toward Metro Louisville. At this point, the rotation around Shively looks like it's maybe starting to simmer down a little bit. That's great. I want to prove that to you, though. We don't just want to tell you that that's what we're seeing. Rick, will you show us why you think that that's the case?
Absolutely. So let's throttle back a couple of frames. And this was the area that we started to say, okay, well, there's kind of a concern beginning to evolve just to the north and west of Shively, where we start to see that couplet form. That's when your greens and reds became a little brighter, a little closer. And there's your latest scan. The couplet still exists. It's now moving over, let's say, the Colorado Ave, Utah Ave. This is around the old Louisville area, just inside the Watterson, around the California neighborhood. But again, this doesn't show me that we have a tornado, but it does show there's very strong rotation, and this could very well need a new tornado warning because now the actual small area of rotation has moved out of the tornado warning itself, but still is encompassed within the tornado warning, or with the severe thunderstorm warning, which still has the possibility of a tornado. So they're looking back at the actual warning itself again.
Yeah, they've said that they're going to continue this. So the threat continues, the threat remains for this storm to rotate, keeping an eye particularly on the Corridon area. That's where the rotation, the center of rotation is most likely. You can see that here on the radar, the reds and the greens right next to each other. I think we're also getting some hail now in downtown Louisville. It sounds like that's what's bouncing off the roof. It sounds pretty small. Mike's going to step out and into our, here we go, look at that.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, will you go see how big you think that is? Don't go outside though. Man, it's great to have that live image in real time.
It is.
That's
Just
awesome.
a quick side note, tree down on I-64 near exit 122.
Say that again?
Tree down on I-64. This is in Floyd County, Indiana, near exit 122.
Okay.
So if that's your exit, it's not going to happen. It's
Not
going to
happen.
Yep, so avoid that at all costs.
Right. So getting back to what we were saying just a minute ago, the Weather Service is updating the warning. Rick's got a hailstone in his hand. Why don't we come out live on camera? You can see how large it is, giving really good perspective. And thanks to our camera operator, Mike, who stepped outside to grab that.
Thank you, Mike.
Pea-sized hail, right?
Yep, pea-sized hail. It is melting, obviously, but I'll drink it. But yeah.
Don't drink it. It's gross.
I'm just kidding.
Toss that in the trash.
I'm just kidding.
The
So
Weather
pea-sized
Service has
hail.
let us know that they are going to continue this tornado warning, though. So a tornado warning, again, has been issued for parts of Jefferson County, Kentucky, which is where Metro Louisville is housed. Shively, getting close to PRP, really far western locations in the county are all that's included in the tornado warning, but the Weather Service is saying, yeah, we still see this as a threat. We're going to keep this going. It's because there's that couplet, there's that area of rotation just outside of Corridon. In fact, it's right along I-64 now, I will argue, where we're seeing that best rotation, kind of following the interstate just north and northeast of the city of Corridon, excuse me. So we want to keep a really close eye on this rotation. It is looking like, to me, it's taking a little bit more of an easterly track instead of southeast. Let's walk this back a couple of scans. I think we may need to adjust
The actual warning.
the trajectory of the warning there. Yeah, we'll give it another scan or two, but I think that storm motion might be changing a little bit. So we'll keep an eye. That would take it closer to Metro Louisville, like to the downtown area. That would take it inside the Waterston if that's true. And so we'll keep a closer eye on that in the next couple of scans and see how that evolves. The Weather Service has also let us know that remember, this is not the only warning we're dealing with. We have a couple of really elite thunderstorm warnings. This one for Jefferson County, Indiana, and parts of Trimble County as well. That's in Kentucky, obviously. For some large hail still falling there as well, golf ball-sized hail. So we don't want to ignore you guys. We want to pay really close attention to what's moving into Metro Louisville, considering there's a tornado warning. But there is still significant weather happening even outside of Metro Louisville. So, Rick, I want to come over to you on Storm View 3D because we are watching that rotation. It just shows up a little bit better on your computer. Can we look at that couplet again? Can we see how the storm has evolved in the last few scans?
For sure. So I think it's safe to say that this is probably the main show right now that has our focus and has our attention. Tornado warned storm, and it gives us just to the south of Crandall. If you're in Lanesville, I need you to be in your tornado safe place, and I need you to be there now. Now, there's a weird interaction which will happen between the storm in Louisville and the storm that's just to the northwest, because you get this rain cool air that gets pushed out. And like Hannah kind of just mentioned, this can alter the storm track. But in Crandall right now, you are getting some decent-sized hail, and just north of Corridon, watching the potential for that rotation. Hannah, you're getting some new information from the Weather Service?
Yep, the Weather Service is going to be issuing a new severe thunderstorm warning for Metro Louisville because the wind signature is increasing. That's their quote. So we're seeing that. I think it's for that couplet that we've talked about that was over Shively that's now moving toward Audubon Park. You can see it there, kind of the Butyl area too. I think that that's probably what they're looking at. They're going to put out a new thunderstorm warning here shortly as the wind starts to pick up. So we've talked a lot about hail. We're talking about tornado potential. And also, by the way, we can't sleep on the wind threat because that's now what's moving into the city. So we got to keep an eye on that. It looks like that warning will come out in the next few minutes. We appreciate their their communication on that. In fact, they went ahead and said that they're going to cancel that tornado warning that was leading up to downtown Louisville. Looks like they've already done that. Okay. Canceled the tornado warning. They're going to replace it with a severe thunderstorm warning just to make sure you're aware that the threat is there for really strong wind gusts moving into the city. And
I think it's important to note, Hannah, because you have one storm which is moving through the city in the St. Matthews, Audubon Park, Newburgh area, but there's another thunderstorm which is just northwest of that. And so if you think, okay, the rain is tapering off, it's coming down, especially in the West End. No, if you're in Shively, if you're in PRP, if you're in Portland, there's another storm just northwest of you that is intense. It has a ton of lightning, there's some large hail, and it is showing signs of rotation. So do not let your guard down. I can't emphasize that enough. If you are in Louisville, just because this first storm came through, you cannot let your guard down because there's another one right behind it. So for now, again, in Louisville, you're looking at the potential for some 60-mile-per-hour winds and some quarter-sized hail. We just brought in some peas, which fell in downtown Louisville, so varying degrees of sizes of hail. Thankfully, it is not the hail that we experienced up around French Lick, where it was baseball to golf ball-sized hail, but we are seeing some tiny hail about a quarter in diameter or smaller moving across the city. I'm not seeing any crazy wind fields showing up inside the city, which is a good sign, but still watching around the Audubon Park area of just some real subtle rotation. It is definitely not as pronounced as it once was. Between Lanesville and Georgetown, I'm also seeing another area of some very strong winds in probably the neighborhood of, let's say, 60, 65 miles an hour between Georgetown and around Lanesville. So that's, if you're traveling 64 and you're moving through between those two locations in Harrison County, you might just kind of want to pull over and wait for this to pass because that's some very powerful wind combined with the blinding rainfall. Those are not good travel conditions. And there comes your new warning. And also that area, Hannah, that same little area of rotation around Audubon Park still exists.
Still exists. Yeah, so we want to have a conversation about, at some point, we're going to get you back to programming here on Fox. We jumped in when there were tornado warnings covering our area. Now we're transitioning more. You got to understand kind of how these storms set up. You need wind shear to develop tornadoes. You need storm energy to sustain these wind storms and these hailers. And we're seeing that transition now. As these storms move into areas that got heavier rain this morning, they're changing in their dynamic. That's what you're seeing happen in real time. So I want to keep an eye on what's happening south of Lanesville, right just south of I-64. That's still rotating just a little bit. We want to give you information on this new warning that covers really all of Louisville now. And then I think we're, in a few minutes, going to start to wrap this up, if you're comfortable with that, Rick. So here's the new warning. Until 7 p.m., this is a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Clark, Floyd, Harrison, Bullitt, and Jefferson County, Jefferson in Kentucky. It's a really large warning box. It replaced everything else. So we had just a jumble of warnings. They've just kind of consolidated and said, here's a whole area, okay, with some strong wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour, with hail 1 inch in diameter, which is the size of a quarter. So this is a base level severe thunderstorm warning. This is just kind of basic. It's the lowest level that exists, while saying that this weather poses a threat to you, that this is dangerous, active weather. So that is now what covers Metro Louisville. It covers communities leading up to the city. It's not just Louisville. We, in fact, see the strongest part of the storm out to the to the northwest. We're talking about Lanesville. We've really drawn attention to that area, and to Georgetown. We're looking at New Albany and the Knobs. We're looking up toward Greenville and Burnville, Crandall. You can see all of these communities from 64 to the north up toward Highway 150. That's where we're seeing some of the most intense wind, rain, and hail. In fact, I'll flip over to the hail product here. I think that's going to be the main threat as this new cell approaches Metro Louisville, this hail. So we've seen reports of about pea to penny-sized hail falling in Louisville from the first batch of rain and from the first cluster of storms. Now we're seeing this kind of second batch. There's still some pretty decent hail on it, up to the size of a quarter, the quarter that fits in your pocket. That's what we need to keep an eye on as this storm approaches Louisville. There's also one other storm we want to make sure you guys are aware of, this cell moving toward Carrollton. This has a history of rotating. It still has that little tail on it outside of Milton. It's still, I would argue, doing something with the wind there, but I'm not convinced that it's rotating at this point. So we're keeping an eye on this one as well. But we want to navigate you through this storm as it approaches Louisville. In fact, if we can take a look at some of our cameras around the area, I think that would be a really great option to show now. Let's start with the 800 building. I think that would be a really good view because it just doesn't show you a whole lot. There's rain falling. We are watching for some small hail to fall out of this cloud in particular, but we're kind of in between the two cells at the moment. The first cell that moved into Metro Louisville that initially had a tornado warning on it, that tornado warning has been canceled early, and now we're in a little bit of a break before the next more intense cell starts to move into Louisville. That's what you're seeing here. The visibility has improved a little bit. Now we're taking a look from our building in the heart of downtown Louisville. And again, it's a little bit of a break. We're kind of in a lull before the more intense wind, before the hail would start to move in. And as we take a look around our communities on the radar, Corydon just starting to get out of some of that. Gosh, that Georgetown, that hail core is really just coming up in the last couple of scans. That's going to be pretty intense as it crosses the interstate. So we want to keep an eye on that as well. Now, Rick has been watching more closely the wind threat while I'm watching the hail as that moves closer to Louisville. So, Rick, I'm going to flip over to Storm View 3D. What can you tell us about the wind that you've been watching?
So, Hannah, I'll point out two specific things and features that I want to mention. First off, these subtle areas of rotation that we are finding in Jefferson County around Louisville. One, which is just south of Audubon Park, and another one sandwiched between Shively and Audubon Park. So again, these are just subtle areas of rotation, not saying there's a tornado on the ground or anything, but some stronger winds, where the winds are really strong back out here, where you see those blues, those bright colored blues. That could indicate some winds 70 miles per hour plus. I don't know if you could verify that, Hannah, by looking at some of the gates, but right now, a lot of Harrison County, there's going to be some power outages. There's just no way around it. With so many leaves on the trees, it's going to snap some branches, and with powerful winds around Lanesville, I'm anticipating some power outages. Wherever you see those bright blues is where you're getting some of the strongest winds. Now, we just got a new scan in. It is maintaining some of those blues, but also adding in a tiny area of red, which means we can't rule out another tornado warning inside some of this area where clearly some of the strongest winds now, it's starting to tap into this particular storm.
Yeah, I think we're seeing gusts there, Rick, that are approaching 70 miles an hour, maybe 70 to 72-ish.
Wow, okay, so really strong winds, and this is approaching Louisville. So just like we said before, it's not going to be a one-and-done scenario with that storm. The second one is producing some very strong winds, and it is approaching the county line. So watching these strong winds move out of Harrison County into Jefferson County, and still some subtle areas of rotation, nothing to be overly concerned about. But obviously, Hannah, this seems to be more of a wind threat now with some pockets of some larger hail. So where exactly is the worst hail located right now?
Yeah, it's going to be just south of the interstate of I-64 coming out of Georgetown. This is going to dive. It's generally moving to the east. There's a slight southerly component, so this is headed next toward the Portland neighborhood, right along the river as we get into downtown Louisville. So the brighter purples here are where we have larger hailstones, and I'll walk this back just a couple of scans. You can see that that's really coming up right now. It's increasing. We're seeing more of those bright colors, still moving generally to the southeast, a little bit more of an easterly component on it now, though. So I'll put a track on where that hail is most intense and bring it into Louisville. Again, the Parkland neighborhood we specifically mentioned, about only 5 or 10 minutes away from you. The center of downtown is what's labeled as Louisville there. That's about 15 minutes away and 20 minutes away from Audubon Park. Now, we had some photos a few minutes ago, if we can get those pulled up, from when hail came through West Baden earlier today. This is who? Brittany? Thanks, Brittany, for sending this photo in. It looks like this is like baseball-sized hail. Appreciate the size comparisons there with the Roku remote. So when this moved through West Baden Springs earlier, we were alerting to up to baseball-sized hail. Jude was there giving us some on-the-ground information. As we think about the hail that's approaching Louisville now, I'm not convinced we're looking at baseballs, but the storm isn't picking up in intensity. So we've only had like pea-sized hail, maybe penny-sized hail around Louisville so far. We haven't seen this intensity of hail yet. And this hail core continues to increase. The size of the hail continues to increase inside of this storm. This is now where we need to be prepared for larger hailstones to approach West Louisville. This is headed toward the Parkland neighborhood. This is headed toward Shively. This is going to move in, obviously, to the western part of the county first. And then it looks like it's on track to move inside the Waterston, so within really heavily populated areas of Louisville. The bright colors are taking it on that trajectory generally to the southeast, slight easterly component moving about 35 miles an hour. So that cone shows you generally where that hail core is headed. And the fact that the colors just keep getting brighter, that's concerning as it moves into Louisville. Might we see it weaken since we've already seen rain and storms move through Louisville? Yeah, but we should have already seen that. It would have done that already because Georgetown, Edwardsville, Lanesville, these are also places that have already seen rain today. So the fact that we've not seen that come down yet, that's what's concerning to me, is that these larger hailstones, this larger hail core is on a collision course with Metro Louisville.
Hannah, I do want to mention, so you just really covered the hail through and through and showing us exactly who will see the worst of the hail. So I'm going to take the other side of the story now. And I'm going to go with the wind because this is just showing the wind field that is now moving into Louisville, impacting areas like St. Denis and around the Shively area. So for those of you who live in, let's say, Lake Dreamland, Rubbertown area, if you're in the Parkwood area, some very powerful winds, 70 plus, moving your direction.
That was exactly what I was going to say. 70 plus mile per hour wind. The Weather Service has updated that warning now that includes all of Louisville to say 70 mile per hour wind gusts and 2-inch hail diameter.
Jeez, that's not a good combination.
No, it's not. We're getting back toward that golf ball and baseball sized hail. So we were just talking about hail. You should talk more about the wind because that was excellent, but we have just gotten a more intense severe thunderstorm warning on that now.
Yep, so kind of like the way we like to just kind of uptick a little bit before we kind of were simmering down. Well, now things are boiling up again, so you have to be on guard, and especially in western Louisville right now. Let me give you some of these roads. Campground Road, this is all in West Louisville. Shawn Road through Brammer Lane. This extends into, just make sure I get Kenmore Avenue. This is all West Louisville, around the St. Denis Shively area, where you're getting 70 mile per hour winds. 70s can be considerably damaging, if not destructive. And this is the area I'm concerned. We're already getting a couple hundred without power. I fully expect that number to go up because now we have the wind. That hail core is not too far behind, so this is going to be kind of a 1-2 punch. You'll get the wind, and then parts of the area will get hail. I just have to tell you, hail is very localized. I mean, there's always a narrow corridor of where we get some of the larger hail, but the wind can be a much more broad and impact many more locations. So right now, into far west Louisville, around the St. Denis area, I'm trying to measure some of the gates, and it does show around 63 to 64 knots, which would easily exceed 70 miles per hour when it comes to some of the winds, and those being pulled to the ground by the very heavy rain. You can hear the thunder outside, and the lightning is vivid, intense, and that's by Crumbs Lane, what you're looking at right now. I would not want to be traveling out on the roads right now. I mean, if you have someone who has some plans, or who, let's say, I had a dinner reservation at 7, about to head out the door.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Give them a call, say, hey, maybe flip on WDRB and see what's going on there. By the way, you can always stream us on any device. That's just another way if you don't have your TV on. Just make sure you have multiple ways to get the information in case you happen to lose power, because that's a really possible outcome as the storm moves into Louisville. So that core of wind, again, is continuing to track off to the east, still impacting areas of St. Denis. We're looking at downtown Louisville, just outside WDRB headquarters. And
I just want to check and see what the hail situation is here, because we're not seeing any fall right now. If we can take the Weather Pix computer, this is the hail report that we just got in from Lanesville, where we've seen the more intense part of the storm, where we've seen the hail core show up. So this was just sent in to me. Let me make sure I'm giving credit. Well, this person is called Caution Tape on Twitter. Folks,
caution tape of hail.
Caution tape. put your name. I would love to give you credit.
Caution.
But we really appreciate the photos once that storm passes. So this, again, a hail report. Looks like quarter-size hail probably. They've got a golf ball there for some perspective. That's what's in Lanesville. That's what just came out of Lanesville. That's what's headed toward Louisville now. And again, headed toward Shively, taking kind of a southeasterly track that's going to take it closer to the Waterson, bringing it toward PRP. Riverside Gardens showing up here on our list as well. So Rick's focused on the wind. I'm focused on the hail. We're starting to get some of those reports in now of wind strength, of some damage that's coming in, and of those hailstones. When the storm passes, folks, and it's safe to take a photo, please do so and send it to us, because when we can show something like that to give you context for what's coming to your home, it's incredibly helpful and really helps folks make good decisions. So, Rick, you've been keeping a really close eye on the wind threat around Louisville. What are you seeing?
So I'm seeing two things, and the first one is just, again, the very powerful winds, which are just to the south of Shively in the St. Denis area. But I'm also concerned now here. I'm going to throttle back a couple frames where you don't see much, if anything, happening, aside from the heavy rain and the lightning and some gusty winds. But the winds are now getting stronger around the Hillview area. This is just outside the Snyder, south of Okolona, where we're seeing some stronger winds. And while these aren't extreme, this is probably a sign that we're going to have this area get a little stronger with each scan. Hannah, you're seeing something else that...
Yeah, somebody on Twitter is in Hillview saying that they see that that's rotating.
Okay.
And in Hillview, listen, folks, I try not to do the, I don't know this person, here's what they've said, but I think we need to watch that area. Rick's pointing out the wind is coming up. We might be seeing something happen there.
I mean, it's not a bad point. I mean, there is some rotation inside that storm. It's nothing really powerful. But there is some subtle rotation. I think more of the winds right now becoming stronger is going to be the concern down across the Hillview area. So if you are in Hillview, you need to be inside. You need to be away from windows. And just be ready in case we pull the trigger and say you need to go ahead and get to your tornado safe place. But for now, it just looks like some weaker rotation in that area. I'm obviously still, okay, there's something that's promising, but also bad. So the stronger winds have gone away, like you saw in St. Denis, but Hannah, with the latest scan, now a couplet is starting to form around the PRP area, an area of rotations. Let me make sure, and these are right next to each other, so this is the legitimate couplet. This is the greens, winds going away from the radar, reds toward the radar. I'm going to turn on reflectivity. We are right on the edge of that, so we're inside there. Go through NROT, which does show an area of rotation. And now what I want to do is place my marker there. And then we can go and see if there's any debris. Okay, no debris.
Good.
That's a good sign, but this is not a good sign. We do have a legitimate one now in PRP. This is right on top of Crawford Ave. Listen, if you live on one of these roads, Textile Row Ave or Lucille Ave, St. Andrew's Church Road, Wells Drive, you need to be in your tornado-safe place. I don't care if there's not a warning. The rotation is getting stronger. This could produce a tornado, but I'd rather be safe than sorry in a scenario like this just because it can happen in a very short period of time, in the blink of an eye. So again, we still have strong NROT signatures in that area indicating the rotation, and we still have that couplet very clearly showing up on our velocity scans. So Louisville, you've been in the rain now for quite some time. The lightning continues, and there are some pockets of stronger winds, and the one spot in particular is still watching that one right around PRP. Another thunderstorm warning has just come in. Some of the information on this one.
No, I got it for you. This is going to be, again, one of those basic severe thunderstorm warnings. 60-mile-per-hour wind, hail up to 1 inch in diameter. This includes Bullitt, Jefferson, Nelson, Shelby, and Spencer counties, and that warning goes until 7:15. What's moving into Louisville now, and Rick is keeping, such a close eye on the nuances of the wind around the county, around Jefferson County. That's what's going to be really alarming in the next few minutes, is to see how that all progresses. But this is the most intense part of the storm now. Moving into West Louisville, moving into Shively now. We've talked a lot about hail. I'll show that to you here. It looks like the bright colors have come down just a little bit, but that hail core is still very much present as it moves into western Jefferson County, moving closer to the Waterson. So we want to keep an eye on the hail, but the wind at the moment You're tapping your fingers over there. You're making me anxious.
Okay, sorry. Well, it says it's counting down 24, 23, 22 seconds till the next update.
Till the next
so
scan
that
comes
is
in.
literally what's happening in my brain, the countdown for the next scan because of that couplet.
In the 20 seconds then, folks, we want you to send us reports when it's safe to do so. I'm getting a lot more of those coming in on Twitter now. It's incredibly helpful. Folks, just reporting what they're seeing. No matter whether it's right or wrong, we can put that in context. It's really, really helpful. So I'm seeing a lot of folks where Rick was just talking about around PRP who are reporting concerns about the wind. Here's your new radar scan. I'm coming over to you, Rick. It's hailing in downtown Louisville now. We can take that image live. These look larger than peas, but I would say maybe pennies or nickels at this point. Again, this is in the middle of downtown Louisville. We're at 6th and Muhammad Ali. I think that's public information on the internet, so I didn't just expose us in some way. But a really good look at the hailstones that are falling there. In fact, the one that's in the very bottom right corner of the screen might be a little bit larger than the others. Probably penny to nickel-sized hail falling there in downtown Louisville. The most intense part of the storm is arriving now, and we need to be keeping a really close eye on the wind that's developing inside of this storm. I think we're seeing some nuances around here that Rick is keeping a really close eye on. We've really highlighted PRP in the last few minutes. Rick, what is this showing you?
So I'm just going to zoom out just to give you a little perspective. So here's PRP. I'm going to go over to the storm relative velocity, where we still have that couplet, which looks like it's rather broad. Okay?
It does.
And just keeping an eye on southwest Louisville, on the NROT, there is signals now that we're getting some rotation trying to form in the southwestern part of the county. So that's just outside the Gene Snyder Freeway that we're getting yet another area where there may be some rotation. Let me look at the velocity. Again, this is pretty close to the radar too, so it would actually give us a good sample. Not seeing much rotation in there. It's tough. It's diffuse, but it certainly exists. But again, the stronger wind signal is showing up with gusts easily over 60 miles per hour, maybe 65. That's going to move into that very same area. So we have to keep an eye on this, Hannah, all the way through Louisville. I mean, just because it's pouring rain doesn't mean we're done. Inside of this rain, there are these features, either downdrafts, some areas of rotation. There are some problems with wind inside that big shield of rain that you see covering up the county.
That's exactly right. And again, I just want to appreciate everybody who's sending in these reports of what they're seeing even outside the window. It's not safe to go outdoors yet. If you live anywhere inside Jefferson County, in fact, you are still covered by this active thunderstorm warning that you see listed here on your screen. It's a top-level warning for hail up to the size of baseballs, though we're not seeing that materialize here yet, thank goodness. And wind up to 70 miles an hour possible inside of this storm as well. So it's not safe to go outdoors. If you want to send us a report of what you see outside your window, that's great. At this point, you need to be indoors, though. Your safe place is inside if you live anywhere within Jefferson County. And we showed you just a minute ago that this warning now extends outside the county. We're going to continue to chase this storm to the southeast as it moves outside of Metro Louisville, headed toward Taylorsville and Mount Washington. You're included in this warning. Fisherville, just kind of on the edge of it, but you're going to get some heavy rain here in the next few minutes. So what are we looking at for folks on the eastern side of the county? You've not seen the most intense part of the storm yet. The rain's starting to pick up if you're in St. Matthews or on the Hurstbourne area, up toward Middletown even. J-Town a little bit farther south, you're definitely seeing some more intensity. But the rain picking up, you're hearing the thunder, you're seeing the lightning, and the hail is going to start to arrive in the next few minutes. We're seeing that centered right now on southwest Louisville. It will continue to move toward the east and southeast, so it's going to take a direction that looks a little bit like this, moving through Jefferson County. And at this point, the ground truth, the thing we can see with our eyeballs tells us that that's about pea to penny-sized hail in downtown Louisville, but we are on the edge of that core. So if you live south of downtown, we're looking at Shively, we're looking at PRP. Here's a photo from Shively, again, where that hail core appeared to be centered. So you're getting a really good look there. It's more hail than what was falling in Louisville. There's just more of it covering the ground. I think the size, though, is pretty similar, probably looking at peas to pennies that have fallen there. Thank you to everyone who's sending those photos in. Again, it really helps us for the folks who are downstream, who are about to get this storm, so they know what to expect, what's headed their direction. So we've got that hail moving through the central part of Louisville, through the southern part of really the metro, southern part of the county. We're watching the wind, the small wind features that Rick has kept a really close eye on, and just the rain is intense. That's something we saw plenty of this morning, that really heavy rain. That's something that we are seeing plenty more of right now. And by the way, this is not the only storm in our area. We do want to draw your attention to 2 other clusters of storms. The one developing north in southern Indiana, you guys have already dealt with plenty, from Mitchell all the way over to Jennings and Deputy. This is heavy rain right now, but we're going to watch this. And then we've got Carroll County covered by an active severe thunderstorm warning as well. This, again, just a basic level, and I laugh saying that because of the day we've had, a basic level severe thunderstorm warning for Carroll County. This goes until 7. That warning, obviously, the storm, I should say, is going to be chased with another warning once it gets outside of our counties. But that's 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, hail 1 inch in diameter, which is the size of a quarter. So we're watching that storm as well. But for the moment, the most intense storm, the most intense wind, and the larger hail, the more active lightning, these threats are focused right now around Jefferson County, the entire county, specifically around Louisville, and then J-Town, and now it's headed down toward Mount Washington and eventually toward Taylorsville. That's what you're taking a look at here. So Rick is keeping a really close eye on the nuances of wind within these storms, inside of these storms. Rick, what can you tell us? What are you seeing changing around PRP?
So you're seeing between Valley Station and PRP those very strong winds. Those are gusts around 60 to 70 miles per hour. And in the Prairie Village area, we have 1,400 without power. And LG&E reporting total 2,900 people without power. Not 29,000, 2,900 without power. And this core of winds that just knocked out about 1,500 people of power is moving eastward. So you have to watch out for the potential of power being lost along the Snyder as it tracks off to the east. Again, we're seeing a couple different areas of some stronger winds now, and this new scan that just came in shows it actually covers more real estate. So again, some roads where you're probably going to see some strong winds and perhaps some power outages would be Chestnut Way. This is south of Valley Station, Grafton Hall Road. If you're on Lakewood Drive, if you're on Meadowview, or Blaze Way. I mean, these are all roads that are probably experiencing 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. There's also some winds that are extending near the Heritage Creek, Fairdale area, but they're not as strong, you can tell, because the colors aren't as bright. But right now, southwest Louisville, of everyone inside the county, is getting the worst of the storm simply because of the wind. Everyone experiencing that torrential rainfall. I mean, it's coming down. And we also have to keep an eye on that other storm now, which is around Mount Washington. There is a little hook on it. There's some subtle rotation.
You're right.
So this is something that we will monitor as the evening wears on. And one quick point, which may be a good sign, is that there's actually an outflow boundary which has gone from Muldraugh through Brandenburg. And what I mean by that is this green line right there. And that is basically cool air, which has rushed out ahead of the storm. So, you know, if, let's say you just ran a race and you just go, that storm is doing the same exact thing. Pressing the cold air out. I haven't ran a race in a long time, so I wouldn't know.
That's a really good way to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just trying. But we do have some areas of rotation. That is a sign that outflow that we may have some weakening. It's now 6:55, and we will take every weakening signal that we can get. Still keeping an eye on Valley Station for those strong winds. And then around 2 areas of rotation, one near Mount Washington, another one south of Heritage Creek. Those are the 3 spots that I'm keeping an eye on in terms of the wind, Hannah. Okay,
and I'm the hail girl today, so we've got some hail video coming in now. Remind me again where this is from the Hoppers near Shively and PRP. So I love to see folks inside taking these photos. You've got that screen in the foreground there. Appreciate everybody sending in these reports. You can see the hail falling in the yard. Again, I'm encouraged because this looks like it's fairly small. Pea to penny-sized hail for the most part is what we've seen in these communities. And as it came up to the county, as it came up to Shively, we were worried about golf balls, quite literally. I am so relieved to see that pulsed down really quickly as it came into such a densely populated area. Now, again, we're getting just inundated with these reports on social media now, and we're so thankful for all of these. Please keep them coming. It's so helpful to be able to provide some of this context. We're also starting to get some updates from the Weather Service that I like to think of as post-storm updates. like flooding. So the Weather Service has issued a flood advisory for Jefferson County for Kentucky. So around Metro Louisville, that's their way of saying, hey, listen, we've had a lot of heavy rain in the last hour or so. In fact, we can show you some of that most intense rain. We'll just call out a couple of the numbers here because it's falling hard and it's falling fast. Rain rates over 2 inches an hour all around the county. And so the Weather Service issuing that flood advisory is their way of saying, we had a lot of rain this morning. We've got a lot of rain right now. Please be alert if you do end up getting on the road this evening. If you want to be out and about after this storm passes, be alert for flooding around the area. That's going to be in spots that normally flood, kind of the usual suspects at this point. And I expect we'll get a few more of those as this storm dives south and southeast.
Now listen, you said you're the hail girl, so I'm going to let you have this one, but check this out coming in from Lanesville.
Oh man, that looks like snow.
It does, you're right. It covers the entire ground.
Say the name again, please. Ashley Riley in Lanesville. Yeah, thanks, Ashley, for sending this in. I hope that truck in the background is okay, but that's incredible video. You can see how it's bringing down the leaves on the trees as well. Yeah, that looks like it's going to be larger hail than what we've seen around Louisville. And that's exactly what the radar showed us. Larger hailstones when that storm was in Lanesville.
You called that.
Then they came down a little bit as it approached Louisville. That's a great video. Ashley, thanks for sending that in to us. We really appreciate you sending it and for watching and sticking with us this afternoon. The storms have been intense. We started with tornado threat. Now we're transitioning to a hail and a wind threat. And Rick, you've been the wind guy.
Yep. That could sound very bad for many different reasons, but okay. I'll take it.
You are keeping a close eye. Again, it's the nuances now inside of these storms. What draws your attention here?
So honestly, I'm not seeing any real pronounced signs of rotation. There are some subtle ones, definitely within the southern half of the county. There's also another weak one around Mount Washington. None that screams tornado. More just some really nasty winds, like downdrafts getting pulled within some of this rain. So if you're inside, and you probably can, like, if you peer, you can see the trees swaying in some of these stronger winds. Hopefully you are away from windows, because in these scenarios are the types of ones that can knock down tree limbs, and we're getting power outages coming in, and I fully expect that number to rise. But the actual severe thunderstorm warning, the larger one, expires at 7. And that one was for the 2-inch hail and 70-mile-per-hour winds. But the other one, that one goes until 7:15. So, and that includes the eastern and southeastern part of the county. So what we're going to try to do is make sure that we don't lose track of the important area. We also just got another severe thunderstorm warning in, and this one is on the southern side. So this one is for you, Bullitt County. Mm-hmm. You are now under a severe thunderstorm warning.
Until 7:30.
7:30, and it's for
60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and hail 1 inch in diameter. So again, one of those base level warnings.
Okay, and also just to mention, around 31W, Muldrow through Brandenburg, you're probably seeing a pretty decent shelf cloud. Yeah. Which is a lowering, and it's just the leading edge of some of those gusty winds. Kind of looks like a UFO, Independence Day, that kind of scenario. But you're going to get some gustier winds out ahead of that storm, which will approach Radcliffe as well as Irvington. That's not going to be thunderstorm related. And when that comes through, it actually helps cool things down. And that cooler air means less storm fuel. So if anything does happen to materialize over the next couple of hours, that's going to actually be your saving grace. So don't be mad when you feel that gust of cooler air moving in your direction. That is a good thing. Cooler air is a good thing. When you have a storm that was this strong in terms of low pressure, on a day like this, when it's so hot, it's so humid, it felt like a jungle out there. They have all the energy to tap into, so it doesn't take a ton of wind energy to produce severe weather, and we saw that unfold today, and that was the case. Typically, this time of the year, we really don't get a lot of wind energy involved. What we see are kind of pulse-style storms. Well, they'll go up and then basically rain themselves out and collapse and come right back down. In that case, you happen to get some severe thunderstorm warnings underneath the storm itself, but this is a scenario where we have a driving force. We have some flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere to support and keep these storms going. Just tilt them enough that they can make progress off to the south and to the east, and that's what we're seeing now. So still eyeballing the 2 severe thunderstorm warnings that we have ongoing inside the metro. And then just to quickly widen out, we didn't forget about you over there just in Carroll County. The worst of the storm is almost out, and we have non-severe storms from Driftwood through Deputy and all the way into the Jennings, Grassy Fork area. But again, those are non-severe. We're just watching this area very closely in particular for the potential of some 60 mile per hour winds and some quarter-size hail, but still just kind of on our toes here. Can't rule out a quick, short-fuse tornado warning in these kind of scenarios. But for right now, it's just more wind and hail, basic level.
Yes, so what I want to do here, now that we're watching the most intense part of the storm move out of Metro Louisville, which is the most densely populated part of our area, around the county at least, now that we're watching this outflow boundary set up, the storm is doing something, fading a little bit, moving out of this populated area. Rick, I want to take one more look at that center around Mount Washington. I want to see what's developing there, and then I think what we're going to do is get you guys back to programming. USFL is on Fox tonight. We've been with you for a while. Give us a couple minutes. We're going to take one more look at this storm, and then we'll get you to football. So, Rick, walk us through what you're seeing on Storm View 3D.
Sure, and sorry for the interruption of everything going on. Your regular programming of, we're just here to try to keep everyone safe. So again, hopefully there's not too many hate messages out there that we covered up your show, but just know that we care about every person equally around the area. And like you said, Hannah, in Mount Washington, not much rotation, nothing concerning. There's some subtle stuff there, but there are some gusty winds. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Fully anticipate the possibility of some power going out. For those of you in Bullitt County, some decent winds moving in your direction. But they're not the 70s that we had before. They're probably 50 to 60 from what I'm seeing right now. Just kind of going along the line to make sure I'm not missing anything. But you make a good point. With that outflow boundary, that is a sign now that we will probably see some weakening, but that could also reform some other storms. So just watch out for anything else that refires. This is not the go-ahead. If you're across far southern Kentucky, you really haven't seen anything.
Right. So let's touch on this before we leave.
Sure.
So the folks who are around and south of the parkways, we're looking at E-Town, we're looking at Campbellsville and Munfordville. If you've not heard us call your town in the last 3 hours, it's because you were not under threat. You guys got a lot of the heavier rain this morning, which helps you. So you've got a little bit less storm energy to work with. However, these are still really active storms that are now diving south to where you are. We're also seeing the sun come back out in Louisville. That's what you're looking at here behind these storms. So we're not sounding the all clear yet. In fact, I'm going to flip over to that active tornado watch. You're going to still see it displayed for all of our communities except Adair County. This is an active tornado watch. We still have a threat of active weather. We want to make sure you're aware of that, especially as these storms continue to dive to the south. That watch goes until 11 p.m. If we need to jump back on here because the weather becomes a threat to your life again, we will do that. But at this point, we're seeing a weakening in these storms, and so we're going to go ahead and return you back to programming, to the USFL, and we'll be back here if we need to.